Welcome, everybody. This is Hugh Massie, the chairman and founder of DNA Behavior International. And today I'm delighted to be hosting another identity conversation. And I've got Sheryl Hickerson with me. And I've known Sheryl for the past few years, and she is the CEO and founder of Females in Finance. And they're doing fantastic work out there to champion the cause and the role of women in the financial services industry, and she's built quite a following and on the path to 100,000 members of this great movement. So welcome, Sheryl.
Hi, thank you.
So why don't you just tell us a little bit about your life and career background and how you got to this place of starting Females in Finance?
Thank you. It's one of those of something wasn't there for me that I needed, so I just built my own. And I don't suggest that for everyone. But rolling back, I've always worked in financial services. I got a job when I was 19 at an insurance office in San Francisco. I had moved there. I just got in the car. I had $1,000. I thought I was rich, and I was not. I was so poor in like 13 seconds. And so I had watched Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, went into the Kinko's in Berkeley, California, copied the resume out of the book and faxed it to a wrong number. And Mass Mutual called me and said, "Hey, we're hiring for something. I think it's different than what you're looking for. Would you like to come in?" I'm like, "Yes." Went in there, totally shouldn't have hired me because every question they asked me was, like questions like, "What do you know about insurance?" My dad pays my car insurance. Like I knew nothing. I was a fresh brain. The gentleman who hired me though, Robert Brumby, he's still my mentor to this day. Some 33 years later, I asked him why they hired me because clearly I didn't know the job, Hugh. I mean,
Yeah.
He said, "You had two things that I could never teach to another human being." And I go, "What's that?" And he says, "You're naturally curious. You asked lots of questions during the interview, and you weren't like you were just very raw in how you asked the questions. So you really meant them. They weren't scripted. You didn't come in thinking like you were gonna, wow and dazzle us." He says, "But," he says, "you were so like a sparkly bright light of air that came in that we hadn't seen in a very long time. And we desperately needed, especially in an area like insurance. And you were so excited." And away we went. And I was really grateful for that opportunity because that position, that job allowed me to have, for the first time, like stair steps into going into a career. And I really could be anything I wanted to be. At the same time, I was spending a lot of it with male dominated, people, professions and things that were in there.
Yeah.
And I was realizing there really wasn't a lot of space, even at the young age of like 23. And, when I left that job to go to another job in financial services, there really wasn't a lot of space for women. You go through the years become decades are here. And yet we're still doing very similar things. And I had joined all these different women's organizations. And every time I was going, they were extremely superficial. An example of what I consider to be superficial were like, "Okay, let's, go to some overpriced luncheon to learn about how to manage our calendar." Are you kidding? I have 5 children, a job. I got to catch the subway. I can manage time like nobody's business. But that woman in the room who made $2 million, can I talk to her? Because I would really like to know how she made that money. It was just not understanding that. I thought at the time I was unique, but I'm actually not very unique when it comes to that. Lots of women in the profession wanted so much more. And so I remembered saying, "I'm going to go do this," and wasn't that cavalier. I didn't realize what I was getting myself into. Membership is not for the faint of heart. This is an everyday got to get up and make the donuts. That's an older person reference. For any young people, go look for the video on YouTube. But I have to get up every day. Time to make the donuts, time to make the donuts. And here we are, some 4 years later. We'll be 4 years old in a few weeks, and we are almost 4,200 members and counting.
Which is fantastic, Sheryl, when you think about it from, scratch.
Grassroots, 100% grassroots.
Yeah. And you've built a movement and a name. So what do you think has really driven the movement for people, signing up, joining, being so enthusiastic about it?
I've actually sat and thought about that a bit because the early days of those calls were very much like, we're very Sheryl. So like, just like, going to Mass Mutual and faxing the wrong, the resume and all that stuff.
Mm.
I was calling those women up in the early days going, hey girl, I'm going to do this thing. And I don't know what it is. Will you come be here with me? They're like, it's you. Yeah, of course I will, Sheryl. Yeah, you'll do something. Yeah. And I didn't realize until hundreds of people into this that they really did believe that I could do this. And then all of a sudden I started to believe I could do this. It's not that I started the phone call per se that I didn't believe it. I didn't know what I was going to be when I grew up, but I was so excited to just provide something back to the profession that had been giving somebody like me. When I say somebody like me, I grew up in a very small town in Missouri. I got in a car, which is the bravest thing I've ever done to this day, and drove 2,100 miles to the West Coast. No place I had no friends, no family, nothing. And started an entire life, which I didn't realize at the time how dangerous that probably could have been or how whatever. And
Yeah.
I kept going with it's going to work out. We can figure it out. And it's very who I am today if people know me. But now I'm applying that exact same methodology to, hey, I'm going to build this thing. I don't know what it is, but it will be great. I will make certain of it. And then providing almost like a beacon to some degree for some who were already burned out. They were looking for a community of people that they could come and be vulnerable in and just be themselves, whatever themselves look like. And although female centric, just because I'm focused on dolphin doesn't mean I'm killing whales. We had a lot of men who were like yourself. I want to be a male ally. I want to champion these efforts. Absolutely. We want to do this. And so I think it's a combination of a couple of things that have made this be very successful. And we've evolved over time, which you have to do. If you're not
Yeah.
evolving, it's really hard to stay relevant today. And during a pandemic, the best thing that ever happened to us was a pandemic, to be honest. It allowed people to start getting really into who am I as an advisor? What do I want my business to be? I have all this time now because they weren't having to go to conferences. They weren't having to go to meetings. They weren't having to get into the rat race of the commute. They could be a little bit more focused. And those who use that time wisely, whether they were trying to lose weight, whether they were trying to rebuild a business, whether they were trying to build out a project or a program or write a book, the time was used wisely by many who wanted to get to that next level of whatever that was for them in this profession. And we were just there to sort of house and give it a home.
Yeah, because I think because COVID really, including I think for me, allowed a lot of us just to take stock and reflect, slow down, cut out non-essential things, non-essential people, out of our lives and look at, where do we want to be? And you've grown Females in Finance really through that time.
Yeah.
But what is it that there's something about your infectious personality, I think, and people have said, I'm just going to follow you. But why do you think that is? And they keep on following you now.
I know. And I have sat back.
This is
and
not
thought,
bragging, Sheryl. This is about you.
I know. And my Midwestern heart's like, don't do it, girl. Don't do it. But I have sat and thought about that. I have thought about, and there's a responsibility to it as well.
Yeah.
And I take that very seriously. When people are going to give their time and their talent to me, I want to make certain that we honor it and we showcase it and we give it back to them tenfold. I think that some of the people follow me because the things I hear, I always go by feedback's fuel. I believe in that. And I think that some of the things I've heard is that I have this ability just to believe in possibility. I live in possibility. What if this happens? Not always the bad. I'm talking about the possibility of good. What if we do get to 100,000? What if we are able to get, I remember when the TD Schwab thing happened. I was helping place people into jobs. People were calling me. And I'm not a recruiter, by the way. I'm not a job placer. I just believed that I could do it. And so I did. And I didn't realize by setting the example for other people to see, I just believe, she believed she could and she did. I've been living that since I was a little girl. I just always wanted something more. I was extra before that term came out. And so I think that I didn't realize how attractive that was to people. And so when people say something about being charismatic or being, I kind of stop for a second. And I think, me, am I? I guess I am. But I think what it really is I allow others to see what they can be, what they can do. And I help get them there. That's one of I take that role very seriously. Like,
Yeah,
how
I
do we
think,
get them to that thing?
yeah. So I think we're getting to something. So in my eyes, you are definitely charismatic.
Oh, thank
And
you.
you have an infectious personality, and I can see it. I think if you say things, people do believe, and that's a great thing. But something you said there, Sheryl, I think was really important in believing in possibilities, and in a way, you've done that for yourself. Just the way you got a car and drove from Missouri
Yeah.
to California, to Northern California, and put down stumps, as we would call it in Australia, and started living.
Yeah.
Just went into a job almost reasonably blind and had a crack at it.
And had a 1-year-old son, by the way. I was a single mom when I did this.
Yeah, wow. You see, so that's even more.
I just put a little boy in the back seat and said, "We got this, kid."
Wow. So that's even more inspiring to go and to do that. As you say, it's a pretty dangerous place to go. The drive itself.
Yeah, I look back at that time, Hugh, and I remember sleeping in my Datsun 510 in a truck stop because I couldn't afford a hotel room, because that would have taken money out of my this is all I had to put down.
Yeah.
And to the person who gave me my first hotel, or not hotel, but it was it was my first, room, my apartment. And it was actually like a room, but it had its own living quarters inside of someone's home. And I didn't have all of the money, and they let me float it. So I never took any of those kindness, or those, I never took those opportunities that people who sort of looked out after me. And I kept wanting to do better by it and right by it. And I was setting an example for my son because I wanted him to know he could do anything he set his mind to.
Yeah, so that's obviously what you've been bringing to your members, and even yourself with your what I call BHAG, or big, hairy, audacious goal of we can get 100,000 members, which I believe you can.
Mhm.
And you will. You just keep on believing it. But I think getting people to see the world of possibilities, that's also maybe because you're curious, getting others to be curious. But how do you get others? Because you're obviously coaching and mentoring, particularly a lot of women, but probably there's some men there learning too.
Quite a few. Yeah.
Yeah. How are you getting them to see the world of possibilities?
So one of the things that I do, and I don't ever, by the way, I want to make sure I'm very clear about this. When I'm meeting with people and I'm doing these things, I have never, ever charged a penny for the time that I spend with people, very transparently. And the reason I say that is because I think a lot of people think it's a very self-serving thing. And I'm actually, it's the only part that's self-serving is watching somebody's light bulb go doop, and it turns on. I'm like, yes, they see it. So one of the things that I'll sit down, especially if I get any sense from somebody on the phone that they are in a place of crux of hard, of they're in the rock and the hard place and they don't know how to get to the next place, I will pull up a blank sheet on MindMeister, because I'm a big mind mapper. And I say, let me walk this through with you. Let's talk about your opportunity cost. What does it look like? Because a lot of times people are thinking very small because they've been told, riches are in the niches, which it's actually niche, but okay. They think they have to be very, very small. Actually, you don't. You can think very, very big as long as you're clear on what that is, how to build that, and make it deliverable that you can that you don't overpromise and underdeliver on. You want the opposite of that, right? So I'll pull up a blank sheet and walk through an opportunity cost with them. And all of a sudden they realize, I didn't realize I could do this. That was worth that money. And so their business starts to value a little bit more. They are almost reinvigorated to their business again. And I see that. And that's usually a lot of times. I had one woman one time I was talking to at the end of the call. She said, "You can't be for real." And I said, "How so?" And she says, you just did all of this. What do you want from me?" And it kind of caught me off guard. And I said, "I want you to be successful. I don't understand the question." And she sat there literally sat there on the Zoom call with me and just said, "It's too good to be true. You can't be real." And that's when I realized how hopeless our profession truly is, as far as people believing that somebody else could want them to be successful and good and kind and have an abundance of the things that go to that belong to them. That's their calling. And I'm,
So,
that to me was
yeah.
very eye-opening.
So you've just used, I think, Sheryl, a very important word. Almost goosebumps went right up my back. Well, they did. The word abundance.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were chatting before we sort of got online,
Yeah.
properly got online, you used the word motivation.
Yeah.
And, I wonder whether, what I'm seeing and feeling is a lot about what you're doing is motivating people to think abundantly.
Yeah.
That's a big, and you're getting them to go and act it. Because in a way, that's what you've done for yourself, step by step, from, being a 19-year-old driving across the country with your son. You always thought there's more for me and I'm going to build a bigger and better life. And now look at what's happened is you've created this huge movement with all of these people that believe in you who probably didn't fully believe in themselves. And that's what I'm sensing is what you've done. And I think for the women to step up in the industry, particularly, they've got to believe in themselves. And there's huge opportunities for them in the industry. With the wealth transfers and everything going on.
I know one of the things that I appreciate that. I want to make sure I acknowledge it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I used to call it, it was like the law of greatness. We are all born. It's ours. It's literally our right. As soon as we're born, there is greatness to be had for what we're not here by accident. There's reasons we're here.
Yeah.
If that's what a purpose, why people have a lot of different names they want to call it. And I think that one of the things that I do different right off the bat when I get on the phone with somebody, I always say this and I hear the giggles. Tell me about your greatness. And people go, they gotta stop. And I go, why is that funny? Do you mind my asking? And they're like, well, nobody says that. I'm like, I'm not a nobody. I truly want to know what your greatness is. What's your story? What is it that you bring to this world that's so unique and different? And tell me so that I can find the other people who are looking for you and make sure that you know one another. And I take that in and drink that in because, there's a wonderful poem by Sally Kazem. She's a Egyptian American poet. Susie Kazem. And it's called about the greatness of light. And she talks about your greatness and how you've already, and it starts off funny because it says like, we went through this, this battle to be born. And we all know what that is. Okay. And you're the chosen one. When you are born, the minute you're born, you won the race for life. Million other competitors. It was you. You're the one who beat everything out that day. And if that's the case, why do we think so small of ourselves?
It's getting people to think bigger about themselves.
Or to see them the way I see them.
Yep.
That's sometimes it's very challenging. And you'll see people, and this is why there's so many life coaches. This is why there's business coaches. This is why there's personal coaches to get you to see what the next space is. And although I say these things, yes, I do have a coach, Lauren LaForge. She's doing the same thing for me. And she has a coach who's doing the same thing for her because we need that.
Yep. Yep. And I have a coach that I've had, Judy, for 18 years now.
Yeah. It's because you know what is as much as I give and I pour into people, and it takes a lot. One of the things that I hear people say to me, whether they see me on stage talking, they see me on a Zoom talk, the energy. They're like, your energy is contagious. Like, how do you do it? How are you like pushing through a Zoom call and like touching me with this stuff? I said, is all of this that I do, I have to fill my bucket back. My bucket, I can't pour out of an empty bucket, right? My coaches are making me find the things that fill my buckets so that I can give and pour back into others. And guess what? They can then pour into their clients' buckets, etc.
So you've talked about helping people find their greatness or see it, and then motivating them to live it. What do you see as yours? And I know, and I'm just going to sort of bring up the business DNA discovery that you did for yourself in that for our listeners, you're an engager style, which means you're very outgoing, enthusiastic, I think communicative, but infectious personality. That is sitting right there with that. But also I can see on the Zoom call here in your identification there, community builder, because that's a lot of what comes with someone who's an engager, a connector of people. And you mentioned that a minute ago as well. Once you help people see their greatness, you start connecting them to other people, because you can't be connected to the right people if you don't know your greatness, I don't think. But what do you see as your greatness? Sort of knowing some of those things about yourself, your talents. Sheryl?
So there's a pretty famous YouTube video out there of a man who's at a music festival, and he gets up and he's dancing crazy by himself, and he's dancing and he's dancing, and people are laughing. They're taking videos of him. And then there's a person that comes, and they come over and they start dancing with him. There's two of them. Then there's a third person comes over, and then they're really dancing. They're going. And then there's 5, 15, 45. They're all coming. What I feel like I do really, really well, I'm not the initial dancer, by the way. I'm not the person just to stand up and do that. But you know what I am? You're dancing. Let me go find your dancer. Hold on. Because you're over here. Come over here. And then start getting the posse, the people together, the community of the dancers together.
Yeah.
So that they can find. I remember one time when I was a child, 4th grade, how you can remember certain little things where you're exactly at Quiver River State Park, St. Charles County, Missouri. We had to go out, and they gave each of us a little card on the bus, and my card had an owl on it, and I didn't know what that meant. I actually thought it was going to be like our cabin when we went and all whatever. So the point of it was, when you get out, you had this bandana. You were to put your bandana on, and I was to hoot like an owl and find my cabin mates. So you're literally walking around, and I realized very quickly, it only took about 20 seconds in, that if I just stand there and hoot, 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 I can't find my people. So I started grabbing people like, hoot, are you an owl? No. And I'd push are you blindfolded as a child, standing in the middle of this park, trying to find my people. And it was a very difficult thing to do. But guess what? I am now grown with children, grandchildren that are the age of that, where I was at that time.
Yeah.
We still have adults out there trying to stand quietly with their bandana on and hoot. And I'm the person who's walking over them going, move to find your people. You've got to move your feet. You've got to start reaching out and touching people, saying, are you an owl? They need that little bit of that push that comes with love, firmness, authority, and genuinely wants to see them not get hurt, do well, and be successful at the end of it, and find your people.
So you're motivating people, but you're motivating people to connect, right?
Yeah.
That's
in a real deep way. That isn't just taking something. What are you giving back to the relationship? Because there's a lot of takers. If you think there's not, read a book by Adam Grant called Give and Take.
Yep.
There is.
No,
actually, there's 3 kinds of people. There's givers, takers, and scorekeepers. Lots of scorekeepers. It sounds like, hey, I got lunch this week. You get it next week. Okay. It balances in our brain. We work in financial services, Hugh. There's a lot of scorekeepers. We're so good at scorekeeping. I'm trying to live in the abundance state, which is the giver, and in a space that's also giving back to me, because there can be really bad giving where you just give to the point where you give away everything. And I've got to take some for myself, and it's okay for me to take.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And how do we build abundance into this? Because even though you're motivating people to connect, one of the things that you're doing as well, Sheryl, is you're getting people to think bigger about themselves, and to in a way, to celebrate their greatness. and to think abundantly. That's what you're doing. I mean, and that's going to be the fabric of females in finance. That's why more and more women are going to want to and should be signing up to be a member, because that's what you're doing for them. That's what, in a way, that's the experience they're going to get from joining the organization. Because there'll be many other people in the organization that's doing a similar thing. You're going to inspire others to be doing this. That's how I think the community hits a tipping point.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I think the other thing that I do is I don't talk about it just in a professional setting, Hugh. It's your personal setting too, because it
Yep.
does go back to home and your children. And if you have them, family members, I recognize and see them for exactly who they are as a person, the whole package. And I think we forgot how to do that. I think we're so into the electronic devices of life. You know, this is great for being able to meet you because you live in Atlanta and I live in St. Louis, and this makes it wonderful. But I think these have become sort of they've sort of canceled out being human.
It's a bit of an excuse. It's a cop out.
It is. I was going to say cop out. I think it's like, for example, you can just send somebody a text message that says like, hey, I hope you're having a good day. I think that's great. Don't get me wrong, because I do think we need to see each other. But I think there is still something very special about walking out to the mailbox and opening it and somebody taking the time to handwrite a card and say, I see you.
Yeah.
Or, I'm sorry about your father's loss, the loss of your father. Or I'm really proud of you for getting your CFP. Congratulations. Like there's something about that in that moment. When I do that, my little snail mail, my little love, and even our little return label says, a little joy from us to you is what it says. Because I know that the minute that they open that up from females and find it from me, okay, what I'm trying to do is give them a little bit of a little dose, a little dopamine, a little everything, getting them a little push. They come back and they're more motivated again about their life. Because sometimes people have bad days. What I don't want them to do is have a bad day is not a bad life. And a lot of people get sucked into, they had a really terrible client and then they just go, no, not on our watch, not on my watch. If you're in my community of people, we're gonna make certain to try to lift you out of that.
So in a way, you've just said something really important, motivating people about their life.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's strong? If you reflect on this, Sheryl, as we sort of wrap up a bit on your identity, do you see motivating people about their life being more important than actually connecting them to others?
No, I struggle with that. I'm not going to lie. I struggle with that. I think it's part
That's why
of it
I asked the question.
Yeah, I think that connecting Avatar, my favorite movie ever. I'm trying to create as close to Iwa as possible. This idea that there is an entity, a space, a community built off of these connected spaces between each of the people. And even though you might be 6, 10 deep down, there's somebody there to help connect you to the bigger purpose of the work that we do, right? And I don't want it to sound like we're all, I'm not Gus, I'm not God, universe, spirit. That's not at all what I'm implying by this. I would never, ever put my company or myself in that same category. What I'm saying is, whether it's females in finance, whether it's some other organization, find your people, connect to them. It will motivate you. The connection to others, the give and take, the song and dance, the cadence that happens between what you give to me, what I give to you, that flux and flow that happens, it's fluid. We need it as human beings to be our very best, to survive.
So to be motivated, so in a way, to be motivated about your life, you need to connect to your people.
To be motivated about anything, you have to be connected to
your people.
Something. Yeah.
Yeah. So being connected to your people, and which could be to who think abundantly, as well, is the foremost point here. Then to be motivated about, which will help you be motivated about your life.
Yeah. And I think that the connection, I think something to be very clear about, John Gordon talks about on the energy bus. There is good energy and there's bad energy. We can connect to either one, make good choices,
Yeah.
really take inventory and audit who you're spending that time with, because you could very easily be connecting yourself to not the best of people, not the best of intentions. And you're so far down the rabbit hole later on, and you're like, "Oh, I have to get out of this because it's terrible." Instead of, this is one life, you're living it, connect it to the best, highest caliber of people. That doesn't always mean the people who are the wealthiest. It does
Yeah.
not always mean the people who have all of the people in the room that they know. It means the people who, when you are over here doing this, that person's speaking favor on you when you're not even around.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, for me, in building DNA behavior, as much as okay, we've got behavioral tools and talk about
Yeah.
money and money behaviors. At the end of the day, I want people to connect to each other through the heart, and how do we build 1 billion relationships that are heart, connected through heart coherence? Because that's what we've got to do.
And you know what you just said there too, and I want to make sure I add this, is that sometimes individuals come to our organization and their heart isn't in the right spot. And it's kind of like the Tiny Tim and Scrooge. I can work with a crack in the heart. I can totally get in there. That's one of the things I should say. I remember back in the day, I used to say, I specialize in crotchety people. Like, give me your terrible, person. And it's kind of hard to be, my father used to call me Little Miss Ray of Sunshine. And it's not that I'm super positive all the time. It's just that it's talking to you about what's important to you and saying, hey, let's pull that out of you again, kind of remembering what you're supposed to be about. Because I think one of the things that we do the best work in are the people who are not always as happy and cheerful and life is good and they're going great. Sometimes the very best work we do for ourselves too are the ones who come and their business is down. They're thinking about leaving the profession. They don't know what they're going to do. And then they get in and say, okay, let's see what we can do to help you.
But that's where the change has got to happen, is in their heart.
That's it. That's exactly it.
Not everybody has to, but in the day, you want to encourage people to have a good heart or motivate them to have a good heart. And then they'll start thinking better about themselves, treat others differently.
When they pay it forward in the profession.
Yeah.
And I see it happen all the time. The ones who used to talk always just about themselves and now all of a sudden I see their LinkedIn and they're talking about other people. And I'm like, that's how you do it. That's how you do it right there.
But really, if we bring it back down to, just as we wrap up here, Sheryl, your identity, really, you are connecting people, right? You're building a community of connected people who are living, more abundantly, thinking bigger about themselves, and hopefully they'll help others think bigger about themselves.
I think that's the goal.
Yep.
I think that's really it. And sometimes that's really hard to articulate to people on a call. They got to feel it.
Yep.
It's got to be an experience, because people can say a lot of things. Trust me, I read lots of websites. What is it? It's Maya Angelou. They won't remember what you did, but they'll remember how you made them feel. That's what I'm trying to do. And I've got so many of her sayings in my office that I'd read, because she was so on point with exactly the kind of person I want to be and the people I want to hang out with.
Yeah. So in a way, it's helping connecting people who are going to get you, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So have you got, Sheryl, just to close up, have you got any other tips for people that you would like to share out there, whether it's your members, other people that should be joining Females in Finance, or just
in general?
Men and women out there in general should hear a message?
I think that a couple of things. One is, I wish as a child, when somebody asks me, like, what would I say to my younger self? I was on a program not long ago, and I think that I love that question. I wouldn't change per se the experiences I had because they've crafted me into and molded me into the person I am today.
Yeah.
I don't have too many regrets in life. Really, I don't. But I do say that the one skill that I think that and I'm going to give credit to my dad, that he taught me was I can do hard things and to stay in the hard, even at its hardest. You keep staying there because two things. One, you are showing other people how to do the work. But then two, the good stuff's on the other. You get to choose your hard in life. You can choose it now or you can choose it later. I'd rather just choose it now and just get through it and then get to the good stuff on the other side. And we don't teach children how to sit in the hard. We're always there to like jump in and help them. And, oh, we're going to bring their lunch to them because they forgot it. Or no one's starving. Nobody, they can make it. Those hard things are the thing that actually mold us into better people later on.
And I think the word is, and you've used it before, is resilience. That's really what that is. And the number one trait out there, Sheryl, for people that are building a business, for entrepreneurs, you have to be resilient.
You do. And even
and
for the
you are
ones
resilient. I mean, that's clear from your life.
and the ones who have chosen the route of being an employee. I want to make sure I address this too, because they may be listening, watching this and saying, oh, well, this doesn't apply to me. I'm not a business owner. That's actually not true. You own the business of the job that you're doing.
Yeah.
That's how you need to be looking at that role that you're, whatever it is right now, because you'll take pride in what it is. And I have so much respect for people who say entrepreneurship, that's not for me. Good for you for recognizing it, because it shouldn't be for everyone. Businesses do fail. This is hard. This is every day sitting in the hard every single day. And I say that because if you think that, first of all, every business owner hasn't sat on their couch and said, I'm going to get a job tomorrow. We've all done it. I'm going to raise my hand because I certainly have. Many of my friends who are entrepreneurs have said that, but recognizing that may not be your best foot forward, and good for you for choosing that. But that doesn't release you from having to recognize that you must do the hard, choose your hard.
Yeah.
Being resilient, weathering changes, pandemic, no fun, down market, no fun, all of these things. That to me is I think we oftentimes we go right into entrepreneurship, and there's a lot of people who are not, and I have mad respect for the fact that they chose to not do that route. And
well, it's about being empowered and taking responsibility for your life.
That's
and
exactly
I think that's
right.
really what you're saying.
Yeah. It takes all of us to do this work. Right. So it's been a very interesting journey. I've got to meet people like you along the way, and my life is richer for it. And I'm grateful. And I continue to look out and say, well, what's next for me? Who's the next great person I get to know in my life? Because I can't know all the great people. I expect people to help introduce them to me so that we get to both be better.
That might happen today or tomorrow. The next time you walk out the front door, it'll happen.
Yep. It will.
All right, Sheryl, it's been great spending time with you.
Thank you so much for this.